Good morning, everybody. All right, let's see. Opening up a screen that I should have already had opened up, but I didn't. All right, good. Ready. Ready. Okay, let's go ahead and do this. Ask me anything for August 31st, 2023. I can't believe it's about to be September 1st tomorrow. Kids went back to school yesterday, first day of school, so we dealt with that chaos and getting them out of bed earlier than they were used to. So, off to a good start. All right, here we go. Well, before I hop in, a couple things. Number one, Rogue Invitational is coming up, end of October, right? So a couple months away. I will be there. I know that other Linchpin members are looking to go there as well. So let's chat about that in the private Facebook group, in the BTWB Squads feature, and yeah, I'll be there, and I look forward to linking up with anybody that's there. Rogue Invitational is awesome, and we can have a good time actually in person. On top of that, let's see. So I set up this, as everyone knows, all I care about is programming the best strength and conditioning workouts on the planet. That's all I care about. There's many other aspects of my quote-unquote business that don't get the attention they deserve, because nothing's more important than the workouts, as far as I'm concerned. But what I played with the other day was like setting up this email campaign for people. Now, not spam, that sucks, but I set it up incorrectly. So I'm meeting with somebody today to set it up actually correctly. So what it should be is hopefully cool that at different intervals based upon when you signed up, you'll get an email congratulating you on how long you've been around, because sticking around matters, right? But you'll also get a part of the email is like a cool little photo that you can reshare on social media. Just basically says that you're committed and how long you've been there. It's got the Linchpin logo on it, so it should be cool. So you could get something like that at the, when you're early on your 1 month mark, but then like your 6 month, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. We just had somebody celebrate 4.5 years, 5 years. So look for that stuff. It should be coming up. And I feel like there's something else I wanted to do. No, that was it. But before we dive in, just screenshotted a cool thing from Val L, who this is on the big chipper that we had the other day, the bodyweight chipper. And she said, normally I would skip a chipper, especially a bodyweight chipper. But thanks to Linchpin, I'm quickly learning how to modify workouts in a way that makes sense for where I am currently fitness-wise and for what I have in my garage arsenal. Love it. So as I always say, that's a big thing of what we do here at Linchpin, right? Like, through all the resources, through these AMAs, through the Linchpin Conversations, through the daily videos, the goal is to increase your strength and conditioning IQ, and so that you're not only doing the workouts, but you start to see the matrix, and then you can make really good decisions for yourself, no matter where you are, in your garage, in a gym, in a hotel, and that's really powerful and cool. Okay, now let's dive into the questions. Got my coffee, got my questions, good to go, just straight black coffee. And, all right, first most upvoted question from Eric J. There is a lot of talk about bringing back the CrossFit Journal. I did not know that. Say this happens and CrossFit taps you on the shoulder and asks you to pen an article on any topic. What are you going to write about? It's a good question. Man, there could be a whole host of topics that, after so many years, I think I've identified as to just an evolution of the methodology, or the methodology is amazing, and I think it got closer to perfection for GPP, for general physical preparedness, than anything else on the entire planet. But I don't think it was finished or complete or fully evolved. And I might misquote this in some way, shape, or form, but I heard it on several times, straight out of Greg Glassman's mouth in various situations, where he would basically say something like, so a question would come from an audience member, like, and Greg would basically say, like, look, all of you, this is 10 or 15 or more years or so ago, he would say something along the lines of like, look, all of you right now, whether you realize it or not, are involved in an experiment. You're involved in the largest experiment of high-intensity exercise, mixed modality exercise, that's ever been conducted on the planet. Because before this, nobody was doing this stuff. Nobody was doing functional movements. Yeah, these days you see a lot of squat, dead, clean, like it seems to be normal. People jump on boxes and swing kettlebells and climb ropes and try to walk on their hands. That was not the case 15 years ago. You were a freak if you were doing that. You were the outsider, the outlier. So most people weren't doing that. And they weren't working hard, generally speaking, with how we define intensity these days. So, you're on the leg press. You weren't back squatting. That's a relatively recent thing. And so it's you're all involved in the largest experiment ever being conducted with high intensity exercise and mixed modality training. And so there are just some things that we don't know because we haven't been doing it a super, super long time. I think the question would usually come from somebody saying like, high intensity, should we just burn it down every day? And, God bless Greg, give straight answers like, we're not quite sure yet. Well, I think as, a couple of decades have gone by, and I've been maniacally obsessed with programming, I think I've identified some areas that I apply to Linchpin that I think we do distinctly different than just about anybody else out there, quite frankly. And I think that's why Linchpin works and why it works so well and why you can be so consistent with it and not burn out. I could write on those things. I think the training versus testing concept, not only for mentality of how you approach workouts, but that also applies to how you should program workouts as well. Historically never addressed. I think that we needed more reps, more evolution of the methodology. I think in general, strict gymnastics needs some more love. I think something's profoundly unique to Linchpin. I don't hear about anybody else talking about modulating intensity. Nobody. That's something that we do. We do a lot. We even put a weekly video out about it every single Friday for everyone to think about that. That helps with you not only being able to push on certain days, but when to hold back so that you're actually in this game long term. You don't get burnt out and beat up. So modulating intensity could be its own topic. I don't know anybody else posting workouts regularly that give the option to do it not for time, which is linked to modulating intensity. And then the whole concept, which I didn't even come up with, that all of you came up with in the Linchpin community, which I think is amazing, of kinda for time. So everyone knows for time, and then NFT would come up every now and then, not for time, and then somebody would post KFT, which is did it kinda for time, which is a nice way of like, the clock's running, but I moved moderately, I didn't really care about it, kinda did it for time. And doing those not for time days and those kinda for time days then allow you to feel physically and mentally ready to bring it when you decide to make it a high intensity day. I don't hear anybody other than Linchpin talking about that, so I could write about that as well. I think we embrace intervals a bit more than most, and there's good reason for that. Heavy days at a high heart rate, engine building, respecting the heavy days. So yeah, there could be a lot of interesting topics, but I've written articles for the journal in the past, and it also takes a really long time to write a good article, but those would be some rough topics that would pop in there. Okay, let's see. How about Dave D. On, let's see, Dave Castro talked about a 2-week block of programming that he did for CrossFit.com. He comments on how they will be looking for guest programmers for blocks on the main sites. Is this something you would be interested in? If so, would it be similar to what Linchpin has programmed in the past, tweaked from scores submitted, current programming for that particular cycle, in tandem with Linchpin, or something completely different? Okay, so is this something you would be interested in? Maybe. It just depends, because well, this is just something I just don't think people realize is it takes, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the way that I do it, it takes a really long time to program well. And so, I program in 4-week blocks. I'm very intimately aware of how long it takes to program a 4-week block. And so programming a 2-week block would take about half that. It's not, anyway, on my soapbox, somebody sat down in a day or two and just penned out a couple weeks, I don't think it was going to be that good. Or that well thought out, or that well researched, or that well bounced back against anything. But then you could, I don't know, do it just to say that you did it and you posted it on a main page, and that, gets your name out there, and that's cool. Like I understand the attraction for that. So like, yeah, is it cool to get stuff on the main page? Sure. I program workouts for main page, that's cool. But doing a 2-week block, to do a 2-week block correctly, like I said, that's a big deal. So today's Thursday, as a matter of fact. So I've been starting a new block of training that I'm programming out right now. And so I'm 4 days in, I program in 4-week blocks. I've been working on it for 4 continuous days right now. And I just about have the heavy days for those 4 weeks lined out exactly how I want, but they're not totally set in stone yet, and they might still move around a little bit. That's just the heavy days. That's not any of the other workouts, any of the engine building. Haven't figured out any of the mixed modality workouts. Haven't had a chance to research as to where we've been, where we're going on loadings, rep ranges, time demands, the whole 9 yards. It just took 4 continuous days of work to sketch out where the heavy days are going to go. And so my point is, doing programming and doing it really well takes a huge amount of time. And so doing 2 weeks of programming, if you're already working all the time, I don't know where you're going to do that. And to do it right, there's no way I could just, cut and paste 2 weeks worth of Linchpin programming and paste it on to whoever the last person was that did it, and hey, look, this 2 weeks is Linchpin. I would be horrified. I couldn't do that and live with myself, because yeah, that 2 weeks of programming is great, but it's great based upon everything that came before, that it flowed beautifully. Well, now I'm cutting and pasting it onto 2 previous weeks that aren't the 2 previous weeks that were there before. So it doesn't flow. It doesn't make sense. So in my humble opinion, if you want to do it right, what you would have to do for that 2-week block is exactly what I'm doing right now. I'd have to sit down, scroll through everything, that happened previously, do all the typical analysis that I would, and start from an actual just blank template of now, based upon everything that has occurred previously, what makes sense in the next upcoming 2 weeks. And that's how it should be done. And to do that, that's a big time commitment. And so if I'm doing that, I'm not doing something else, which means I'm not pouring all my time, heart, and soul into the programming for all of you. So it would actually be a really challenging decision. I guess that's the honest thing, because yeah, it's cool. Right. I mean, obviously it's cool. Yeah, sure. But everything is just an economic decision, and I'm not talking finances. I mean economics of time. You've only got so much time, and something would have to get sacrificed somewhere, and that'd be a rough one. That'd be a rough one. Okay, let's see. Next most upvoted one, Mark K. Pardon me, we'll have another sip of coffee. Hope this makes sense. With Linchpin having thousands of members all putting data in BTWB, one could imagine running studies or experiments. Which actually is funny. That dovetails on kind of Eric's question, and how Greg used to say you're all participating in an experiment whether you realize it or not. Okay, running studies or experiments, splitting us into groups that each get a different program, comparing results over some time horizon. Maybe one group gets more heavy days, the other one gets more long runs or more interval training, whatever. If you could do something like this, what aspects of programming would you be most interested to test? Great question, super cool question. And that happens and has been happening just for years of the programming evolving based upon the data that rolls in and what I see people doing and how they respond to it. You know, linchpin programming looks different today than it did 5 years ago. It's evolved, I mean, without question. I think anybody who says they did it right and they haven't changed anything in a really long time, you should be very suspicious of and run away. It's a shocking level of hubris or ignorance, or maybe a combination of the two. And so yes, it has evolved to what it is today, largely based upon what you just said. And I hope that it looks a little bit different, as the months go by, because it's a living organism. I don't think there's anything better out there. If I did, I'd hang up my hat. That's something we pride ourselves on a lot. But I do think that we're doing it better than anyone, just because of not only the results that people post, but there are plenty of other training programs out there doing exactly what you just said. You're going to do regularly 2 pieces a day. Every day is going to be a heavy lift followed by a Metcon. Everything's going to be like the stuff that I've kind of identified why I don't think it works. There's, it's a big fitness world out there, and there's plenty of people doing all those different segments, and we get people from all of those segments to Linchpin sharing their stories about how, yes, I did this other style, like one of the styles that you're talking about. It worked for a short period of time, but that was just a myth. Then it caught up with me. Then I was overtrained. Then my knees, back, and shoulders hurt. Then my numbers started to go in the wrong direction. And now I sought out Linchpin. Things are going great. So I get this data all the time. And I don't just casually read that stuff. I very much pay strict attention to that stuff. And one of the most interesting things that I would love to see data on is, don't get me wrong, the strength and conditioning aspect is fascinating. It's my neurotic level passion, but it's the human being side of it. Because, human beings are tricky, and compliance is a really big deal. Adrian Bosman has a quote that I really like, that he basically says, the best program out there is the one that you stick with. It's the one, it's the one that you actually do. Because truth be told, most people quit. I mean, that's the cold, hard facts. Most people don't stick with whatever it is. Their nutrition plan, they don't stick with it. Compliance is an issue. It's not that the nutrition plan doesn't work. The nutrition plan might not even be perfect, but it's probably better than what you're doing, and it's difficult, and you have to make some sacrifices, and so most people don't stick with it. Same thing with a strength and conditioning routine. I mean, even if you're doing one, if you could identify, let's just say, the best strength and conditioning program in the planet, okay? Whether you're interested in general physical preparedness, like, CrossFit, you're a power lifter, you're an Olympic lifter, whatever it is, you could identify the best. It only works if you stick with it, right? And now, of course, you don't want to do whatever is number 1,000, because that's probably not good on the list of 1 to 10 to 1,000. But if you're somewhere like you get another one it's pretty darn good. It may not be the best, but it's thought out. It's pretty darn good. Could be a little better. Could be a lot worse. It's pretty darn good. But you actually stick with it, well, that's the right one for you, quite frankly. Because, okay, you had this one that was perfect and flawless. And when I check back in with you 6 months later and say, how's it going? You're like, man, I quit a few months ago. Well, who cares how good it is? And then you get your buddy who's on one that's pretty good, pretty darn good. And I check back in with him and he's still doing it 6 months later, a year later, 2 years later. He's winning. That person's winning. So compliance and the human nature behind compliance is a fascinating topic and an absolutely huge critical topic if you really care about people's long-term health and fitness. So when you talk about studies and what I'd be interested in, it's the people side of it. And I think we do a really great job of that at Linchpin, because we're not just programming, right? Like, we're an actual community, and the community aspect is a huge part of keeping people involved and motivated, and that's why people stick around for years. And then if on top of that, some of those other topics that I spoke about earlier, you empower people to understand and increase their level of strength and conditioning knowledge as to why they're doing what they're doing, how to modulate their intensity, how to scale, how to still follow the intended stimulus while doing that. You give them plenty of options, but then empower them to make a change if need be. They understand that they can do something not for time and still get fit. They can do it kind of for time. When you give that to people and they accept it, and they're part of a community, and they're doing well thought out workouts, now you've got something sticky. Now you've got something that people will be with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years and more. And so the human aspect I'd be interested in. Not to let the cat fully out of the bag, and not that I'm advocating keeping a feline in a sack of any nature. That would be animal cruelty. But we've got a member of the Linchpin community who is in the research world in university, and I'm going to be doing a live interview with him this coming Tuesday, which I think is September 5th. Let me just go ahead and look real quick at our calendar. Yeah, September 5th. And he wants to do a study using the Linchpin community. And so I'm going to interview him. He's going to talk about what he's interested in, and then we're going to give the links and the ways for anybody. You have to be a part of the Linchpin private track. For anybody who's a member, if they want to participate in this study, then you can go ahead and do that. And when the study's over, we're going to go ahead and share the data. So it's funny that you asked this question because stuff's happening. Okay, let's see. Next question. Rusty, what if you have knee problems such that no matter what you do, you can't get down into a full below parallel squat, other than making it a box squat? Any alternative stretches, fixes, or ideas you have might be great. So I guess the short answer to the question is, without having like some full medical profile, right? That's just, there's some demon lurking under there that should prevent you from loading your body because you have something going on, and that's why you can't squat, and then that's a whole different topic. I don't have that information, so I'm just basing this information on, you just can't get below parallel, but everything else is kind of cool. Then the goal would be to still strengthen your body through the greatest range of motion possible. And so whatever depth of squat that was for you, the goal would be to strengthen it to the best of your ability. You don't have to go super heavy, right? Again, just loading your body appropriately and moving through the range of motion that you can, and trying to maintain that range of motion so that it doesn't degrade even further, so that you can live a functional life to the best of your ability. That would be really important. And there's nothing wrong with a box squat. So let's say that every single solitary time that a back squat day comes up, you'd have to box squat every day, every time. I would absolutely, if that was me, I'd box squat every time. Because what's most important is that you are preserving the squat to the best of your ability. And so if that's what allows you to do it in a safe fashion, then that's what I would do. There are also some other ways that you might be able to strengthen your legs if maybe for whatever reason just squatting doesn't work for you. I've got some friends in the strength and conditioning world for in college that, for example, they want basketball players to strengthen their legs, but they're so darn tall and their limbs are so long that it makes squatting and the mechanics of squatting with just how their body is built a little doesn't really make you smile when you look at how the form might look. That they do other things such as weighted box step-ups or weighted walking lunges and whatnot, treat them a lot better. So maybe for somebody like yourself, in addition to the box squat, you could find things like lunges or step-ups or other things and then load them appropriately that would work for what you have going on, and then would still allow you to maintain as much strength and range of motion as possible while hitting it in some different ways. So I would explore that as well, but I would also try to find out, why is it, we said you've got knee problems, and is that some things can be solved and some things can't be solved. So if you have something you can do to make that knee better, great. If it just kind of it is what it is, then you are left with trying to figure out these other options here. Okay, here we go. A few more. Where is this? Let's see. Mike M. When programming movements that recruit similar muscles and involve similar movement patterns, such as deadlift, back squat, front squat, etc., what goes into the decision-making process of when to program each? Great question. We actually just recently did a couple podcasts kind of on this topic that I think you might really enjoy. So, I should look it up on Very Not Random too. Mike, I'm going to give you like 3 hours worth of content to listen to. So what goes into it? A lot. I mean, that's the keys to the kingdom right there. So we just did on Linchpin Conversations number 392. It's a deep dive into programming, part 3. We look back at last week's workouts and we dissect them and why they were created. You could also look into Linchpin Conversations number 388, a deep dive into programming, part 2. And that looks at a different week and breaks it down. And there's a part 1 somewhere. Let me go to Very Not Random real quick. Okay, pardon me everybody while I try to do this. Okay, I'm on the BTWB YouTube channel. I'm going to go to playlists. I'm going to go to Very Not Random. And then what podcast was it where Boz and he basically interviewed me for two parts on how to program. Okay, you should listen to Very Not Random, be it in video or audio format. Listen to Very Not Random number 82 and 83. Number 82 is how to program workouts part 1. It's an hour long. And Very Not Random number 83 is how to program workouts part 2. It's 47 minutes long. So there's going to be a lot of content there as to the thought process that goes into how to program workouts so that things go well. But generally speaking, and this is general, this is a plan from which you'll deviate, but if you're interested in programming, I think it's worthwhile. Over the course of the week, if you could try to, we just talked about this, let's say go below parallel twice, pull from the ground twice, go overhead twice, do upper body pulling twice. Like as a general rule, that's a nice middle of the road thing to aim for. And every now and then, maybe you do it 3 times in 1 week, and every now and then maybe it only happens once. But if you're generally trying to go for a couple of those, then you're going to, and you're spacing them out appropriately so they're not back to back to back, you're going to be in the right ballpark. That's a really overly simplified and short version, right? Like I said, I just gave you 3 hours of content to listen to versus what I just said there for 17 seconds. So please realize there's a ton of detail and nuance that isn't coming across in that little simple thing that I just said. So check out those other things. I actually somebody sent me some programming from some other programming that a gym follows, that they were interested in following Linchpin and trying to convince their owners to follow Linchpin because this other gym was following a well-known deal, but over the course of the week they'd gone below parallel 4 times. They'd done something like thrusters and walking lunges and back squats and wobbles all on different days. So below parallel 4 times in the same week. Athletes are just tired and beat up and not recovering. And I'm like, right, of course they're not. That doesn't make any sense at all. So having the ability to develop your eye when you look at some stuff, you'll be able to see whether it makes sense or not. So anyway, hopefully you enjoy those podcasts. Let's see. Scott W. Sometimes I hear the phrase program for the best, scale for the rest. What's your take? Yeah, I think that I've said that myself in the past, as a matter of fact. And I think it's generally pretty good to go. But I think maybe it could be misinterpreted. Scale for the best doesn't mean, I don't know, that now every back squat in a workout is going to be 500 pounds and every deadlifts, 405, and everything's going to be ring muscle ups, because those are strict ring muscle ups, weighted strict ring muscle ups, because those are the toughest thing, and everyone else can just scale down from that. And it's like, but that's not what program for the best, scale for the rest means. I mean, the workouts that we just did the workouts that we do every day follow this sort of a deal, because let's say that we're doing a DT. We did, what is today? We did DT about a week ago. DT, 155 pounds for men, 105 for women. Okay, you get it, deadlifts, hang, power cleans, and push jerks. DT is a great example for that. Somebody who is just a ferocious beast is going to do that workout in the 5-minute range. Doing it in the 8-minute range is amazing. Doing it in the 10-minute range is much more common, and still I'm very, very impressed. Could take somebody 12 minutes to do DT. So I don't need to say that this animal walked into my gym today. Their DT needs to be 185 or 205, okay, most of the time. Them doing the workout of the day prescribed and then just doing it a couple of minutes faster than somebody else, that's plenty of work. And then it's self-regulating on a day like it's a 5x5 front squat that we had recently. They're just going to lift more weight on that day. I don't have to, everyone's going to do a 5x5 front squat, beginner, intermediate, and advanced lifter. It's not like the advanced lifter needs to do 6 reps per time each time instead of 5. No. They still do a 5x5. They don't need to do an extra set of 5 at the end. No, they're still going to do a 5x5, and that's going to work for everybody. If we go out and do 6x400 meter repeats, everyone does that workout, and the best just do it faster. We play with recovery times, but they don't need to do 500 meter runs each time instead of 400. So if you're programming appropriate workouts and you're actually modulating everything from light to moderate to heavy, then all of your athletes are going to be covered. And what you will most likely have to do is, you wouldn't have to scale up for whoever the beast in the class is. You would most likely program the workout, and then people think, well, that loading's a bit too much for me. I'm going to scale it down. I'm going to knock down this number of rounds. Chest to bar pull-ups aren't really my thing. I'm going to do chin over bars, or I'm going to do ring rows. And so that's what, they scale down from that. Very, 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 very rarely would it be the opposite, where, you would program for, I don't know, like you wouldn't make Fran, maybe a scaled version of Fran is 21-15-9 of an empty barbell thruster and a ring row. Okay, maybe there's a scaled version of Fran. Now, if you programmed that and that was your workout of the day, well then yes, most of your people who walked in would probably actually need to scale that up, and not too many people would need to scale it down. But if you actually program it how it's supposed to be, then it's going to be ample for the overwhelming majority of athletes that are walking into the gym, and people will knock it back, modify it, or scale it as needed. So that's kind of the general rule, and that applies to really everything that we do as well. I think that statement holds up pretty well. Let's see. Why do I feel like I'm missing something here? Okay, final question. Pardon me. I'm going to get a sip of coffee just because, it's 6:20 in the morning. All right. Jordan S. Thanks for all you do. My pleasure, Jordan. Thanks for being there. My overall fitness has improved dramatically since I started Linchpin in March of this year. I'm looking forward to continuing improvement, and this community has been invaluable to help me learn the ins and outs of CrossFit. I'm starting the Very Not Random first pull-up program on Sunday, but I'm having trouble coming up with a goal. I know that I'll need to get the test done first to see where I'm at, but I have a tendency to set my goals a bit too high. For example, back in March when I started Linchpin, I set a goal to do a muscle-up by the end of the year. Now I'm just aiming to do the workouts without scaling the pull-ups. As you can imagine, at 6 foot 5 inches tall and 233 pounds, pull-ups are very challenging. Although I'm taking steps to improve my upper body strength, but it's a bit disheartening when I set goals too high. It almost seems like I'm trying to hit a moving target. Maybe you could offer some tips for goal setting. Yes, this is the question. This is it. It's funny how so many of the questions have this interplay. this is just what I said a bit earlier with its the study we're going to do, compliance. The best program is the one that you stick with. Strength and conditioning is easy. People are challenging. Like it's people. It really is people, and getting people to get out of their own way, to get out of their own head, and allow themselves to just do the work, and good things will happen. So Jordan, whatever your goal is, you do the test, you figure out where you're at. And then if at the end of the pull-up program that you're doing, the Varied Not Random pull-up program, let's put the bar really low. You do your test at the end of that. Is it a strict pull-up program? Yeah, first pull-up. And you get one more rep, you're stronger. You've won. It worked. You're on the great path, and that one will turn into two, that two will turn into three. Now, if at the end of it, you're like, I want to get 15, well, that's probably a bit too high. But just look for improvement. Have that be your goal, maybe even more so than just a particular number that you have your heart set on. Do the test to see where you're currently at as a baseline, and then improvement from that is the goal. Because if you can just have this continuous, gradual improvement, good things are going to happen. And so at 6'5", 233 pounds, your goals are realistic. Okay, I've seen people your size doing muscle-ups and things like that, but don't worry about the shiny object, the fancy thing just yet. That foundational building block, that's where you make your money. You put in the work there. And so you're doing the right thing. A strict pull-up is a lot less flashy than a kipping ring muscle-up. But, my humble opinion, everybody needs more strict pull-ups in their life. Everything's better when you develop more upper body strict pulling capacity. And so focusing on that, allowing yourself to be patient and do the work, be on the journey, increase your strict upper body pulling, good things are going to happen. So my goal for you, my goal would be, don't quit. Like I said, again, in a previous comment, most people quit things. So goal number 1, be consistent, do the work, and stick it out. And goal number 2, whatever you test at, the goal is to improve from there. And if you complete that Varied Not Random strict pull-up program, and you improve, whatever that number happens to be, you have won. And then also, like with those Varied Not Random programs, which I'm obviously biased to, but I think they're fantastic. Once you purchase them, like, you own them, they're yours. And so if the strict pull-up program is 8 weeks, that lives in your BTWB app, and you can go back to that program any time that you want for the rest of your time, and do it again and do it again, and build and build and build. And each time you're starting from a higher point. So that's really great stuff. And if anybody wants to check out where those live or what they're all about, go to variednotrandom.com, and you can see all the different programs there and cycles there. So cool. Okay, I think that is about it. My little girl is just starting to stir, so the timing worked out really well. I appreciate all of you. These are some of my favorite conversations that we get to have over the course of the week. And keep being awesome, and we'll talk later.